Portugal's politics are said to be in a fragile balance at the moment. The AD leads a minority government, but Chega's growing influence makes governing harder, especially on divisive issues. Welcome back to Riks Europe, Miguel Nunes Silva, Director of Trezeno Institute and local councilman in Portugal.
Thank you again for having me, Rebecca.
So could you tell us about the struggles to find balance here? What are the main divisive issues?
Well, the current government is supposedly a center-right government, and they've been trying to strike a sort of a balance. They won the elections, but by a very small margin, and they have to make sure that they hold on to the centrist electorate. That means that there are concerns of center-left people that they have to take into consideration, and also concerns from right-wing people they have taken into consideration. Their two main rivals are the Chega populist right party and the Socialist Party. So the government has tried to basically ingratiate itself with left-wing electorate with LGBT issues, for example. At the same time, they've also tried to take a more firm tone on immigration. But the problem is that since they've taken power, so this is about a year now, there has been a rise in crime, and one of the stances, one of the positions of AD people and pundits and politicians is that there is no link between immigration and crime. There have been several high-profile crimes, many of them committed by immigrants, not all, but many of them. And so this has been fuel for the Chega party, which is quite high in the polls. It's now reaching 20% for the first time in its history. So actually higher than it was last year. But on the other hand, one of the big causes of Chega, and this is what differentiates Chega from other European parties, I think, is that whereas immigration is a concern in Portugal, mostly in the south and in the Lisbon metropolitan area, it's not so much a problem in the rest of the country. Also because a lot of the people who come are not people, say, from the Hindustan, India, Pakistan, that sort of thing, or the Middle East, but they also come a lot from Portuguese colonies. So the integration is not quite as difficult as it would be in, say, Northern European countries like Sweden. So one of the other causes that Chega champions is corruption. It's fighting corruption. It's a big deal. Chega has offered to decrease the number of politicians, to decrease the level of salaries of politicians, to put up special commissions and agencies to fight corruption. And of course, it has been ignored in all of that. And the trouble is that the current Prime Minister Luís Montenegro, he was a lawyer, but mostly his career has been as a businessman. But as a businessman, tackling mostly with government expenditure-related issues and investments, which basically means there's a lot of promiscuity and revolving door businesses and deals between the current leadership of AD and the government. And so far, that hadn't been a problem. But in the recent weeks, there has been a number of revelations. So there have been a number of scandals, both related with Chega party and with the other political parties. But now the latest one has reached Montenegro himself. So apparently he had two companies that he had not. One he passed on to relatives so that there would be no conflicts of interest, except that he is married to, his wife. So his wife is one of the people who run the company. And as a consequence of that, he would still benefit from whatever money that company made, which is substantial. And the other is a company that also, I think, is run by his former attorney practice office, but it was given a contract directly by the Montenegro government. So it didn't even have a public tender. There was no competition. It was simply directly awarded the contract. And so these are scandals that impact the Prime Minister himself. And worse than that for the AD government is that they basically substantiate the Chega narrative that there's too much corruption. So at this point, the Chega leadership decided to present a vote of no confidence. Now, odds are this is not going to have much of an impact, so the government will probably survive with the help of the left. But it is the first vote of no confidence in this minority government, 1 year in. So it's not good news. It validates Chega's narrative. And yeah, for the AD government, this is not good news. It's not a terrible headache, but I think it severely undermines the credibility of the government. One other aspect, which was curious, was that when Donald Trump was inaugurated as US president, the one Portuguese politician that was called to be at the ceremony was André Ventura, the leader of Chega, not Montenegro, not a socialist. So I think the government was already a bit fragile. It remains fragile, and if scandals like this continue to happen, if the rise in crime continues to increase, then this could. And I think at this point, no one really expects this minority government to reach its 4-year term. It will probably collapse before that.
So, are these the main reasons for the far right, so-called far right party Chega? To have this rise in opinion polling, and how is that affecting the political landscape?
Yes, I think the situation with the crime rate is one of the big factors. The corruption scandals, subsequent corruption scandals, although Chega himself itself has also suffered some scandals. That is the main reason. Also the fact that just as it happened with the previous government, the current, say, centrist, formal, traditional opposition is not doing much of an opposition. So the Socialist Party is there. They are, of course, the second largest party. But the leadership is also a bit weak. They came from the left faction of the Socialist Party, so they are not particularly influential with the media. They're not particularly influential with businesses. And that means that when something goes wrong for the Socialist Party, they can't really change the agenda that easily. And as a consequence, they're not a very effective opposition force. This year, 2025, we will have local elections in Portugal. And so at the moment, the cycle of announcing the candidates to the different cities, different municipalities is going on. And the Socialist Party has not managed to secure big names to launch as candidates for the main cities of the country, which at the moment are controlled by the AD, by the center-right government. So Porto, Lisbon, all those municipalities do not have strong socialist candidates. And that lack of opposition also basically leaves a vacuum that Chega is taking advantage of, because really, even though it is the third largest party, it is the most loud voice against the government.
And how important will these upcoming local elections be? Will they change things?
They shouldn't change things significantly, no. I don't know how it is in Sweden, but in Portugal, people do not vote for local elections thinking of national topics, of national issues. They really vote for names. They don't even vote for parties that much. They vote for names, and they vote for local issues. And that means that it's a completely separate vote from that of the national elections. Of course, it is important if you are one of the two leading parties, if you happen to control the big cities, that of course allows you to have more money to spend, to possibly try to buy some votes, to provide some benefits to people, welfare, and that way try to secure votes from say social housing, neighborhoods, that sort of thing. But it's marginal. So even if you happen to win Lisbon, that does not grant you a victory in national elections. But it certainly makes it harder. At the moment, PS is not in government, so the Socialist Party is not in government. They don't control the major cities, and they are run by, again, the leftist faction, which means that to compete in national elections, I think, is quite hard for PS, relatively speaking, at the moment. For Chega and the new parties, the Liberals are also quite new. The local elections are also a bit marginal because the people that are elected are usually not necessarily influential in the national leadership body of the party. So it's a secondary contest.
I understand that there are economy is also, of course, an issue, and there have been promises made for young workers when it comes to economical struggles. Could you tell us about that?
Well, housing is a big problem because Portugal, since the austerity crisis, had to attract young people, had to attract investment. And that investment has caused how real estate prices to soar, to rise quite significantly, which has made housing very difficult for young people. So there was the promise made by the AD government and the socialists as well, that there would be new investments in housing, in affordable housing, most of all. However, the government is 1 year old, so I don't think any person is expecting big changes to happen quickly. Will they happen at all? I don't know, but for now, I think the government is given a period of tolerance. Give it another year, and I think people will start being a bit more demanding. But for the time being, no, there aren't many changes. The only thing that this government has done that is, well, definitive is that there were a number of public investment projects that had been waiting for years for debate and approval, and they moved very, very quickly. So Portugal will build a new airport. It has already been decided where, and there will be a new bridge over the river in Lisbon. So all of that has been decided very quickly by this government. But in terms of structural changes to the country, nothing is happening yet. Another problem for Portugal being a southern country, a poor country, is that we depend a lot on EU funds. And so far, the resilience program that had a lot of European funding has not been even remotely as completely implemented as it should have been. So there was a lot of European money that was not taken advantage of, that was not seized, and many people are criticizing that. But we'll see what they do.
Thank you very much, Miguel Nunes Silva, Director of Trezeno Institute and local councilman in Portugal, for your insights.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching Riks Europe.